music to wake up to. It's 7:52. Remember Paul Revere and the Raiders, the Byrds, Herman's Hermits, the Turtles, some of the classic rock groups of the 60s. Well, they're alive and well, and they'll all be on the same stage all summer long in the classic Superfest concert tour, which begins Friday in Atlantic City. Yesterday, I spoke with Mark Lindsay, lead singer from Paul Revere and the Raiders, and with Mark Volman and Howard Kalin of the Turtles. I asked them why there's such a comeback of 60s music.
I kind of blame, I think, a lot of it on the fact that a lot of the music that has happened since the music of the 60s is fairly redundant and has a lot of the same qualities and probably doesn't have the same spirit that we put in a lot of the music. The technology of today has kind of surpassed the need to write the classic songs of the 60s that we were so inclined to be drawn towards. I think the music has a lot more roots in the actual mechanics of the sound of records today make a lot of the success. And when we were making records, it was the actual inside, the lyrics and the feeling of the records.
Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so too. Also,
great.
Let's go home. We got a consensus here.
No, it's also hard to ignore the fact that those of us approaching the dreaded 4-0 and our generation are still the largest demographic group in this country, and that the records, the songs that we grew up with and remember, we're passing on to our kids. And yeah, we're feeling the repercussions of that, and we see it in the audiences that come to the shows, because there are parents, there are kids, and in some cases, grandkids that are starting to show up.
But see, that's the thing that surprises me. Obviously, those of us in our generation still love the 60s music, but my kids are listening to it. My 12-year-old son is playing it.
I think it's a question of it. It worked then. It felt good. It just had a feeling. It had a spirit, and it still has today. And kids, if you're growing up today or any time, music works if it works, and it worked then. It works today.
I always wanted to ask you, Mark, what was it like to play music in those Revolutionary War uniforms?
It was like working with a bunch of clowns. You turned around. It's impossible to have a bad time when the bass player is, you know, wearing a lace dicky. I mean, it's...
Do you miss the 60s? And the 60s music?
I miss every year. No, it's, for sure, I reminisce, but it's a part of my life that'll always be there, so I really don't miss it. I still have it with me.
Yeah, it was a rough era, the 60s, in that we had to make happy music. We had to make lasting, emotional music just to counteract the feelings that were going on politically in this country. It was kind of a backwash, and now that people think back on it, yes, they do have those platoon feelings of guilt in their heads, but they also remember the good times, the songs that counteracted those bad feelings, and the happy times that stay with them manifest themselves in the crowds that come to see us.
A lot of performers from the 60s have just faded into oblivion. What is it about you guys that you've retained, whatever it is, that makes people want to come out and see you in concert so many years later?
Energy, for one thing. I mean, I think it's a real positive attitude about the music that we've made. Not feeling dated about doing songs that are 20 years old. You know, people come up and say, how can you still do that song? And it seems as new and as fresh and alive as the year that you cut it. Well, a good song's a good song, and it's always the performance, the first performance, and watching the crowd and getting that feedback reaction that brings the pleasure. You know, the music isn't old, and the people aren't old. If you keep your spirit up, the audience gets it.
Flo and Eddie, Mark Lindsay,
thank you.
I'm looking forward to the tour, and so are my kids, by the way.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
And we'll be right back.
Next hour, Julio Iglesias, and tomorrow, Don Amici.
There's only